All right, so I'm just making a
Uh,
quick
yeah,
video saying
so
that I just
Jake
had
is
an
making some
idea.
challenges right now. We are trying to brainstorm a bit together
Yeah,
for him. Yeah.
but I just came up with the idea of this mind map in the San Diego Python with Run Quinn and Turbosonic for, let's see, we're going to have, it's going to be like a regular map. So at zoom level 1, we're going to have like the entire universe. Like we're just using the universe as an idea for the mind map. And then we're going to say like Alpha Centauri is going to be at zoom level 1, and then somebody can zoom in to zoom level 2, and then
The
you'll have,
Smithsonian one, it has a new 3D map. This one.
yeah. And
Uh,
our program
uh,
maybe in the beginning won't have 3D capabilities, but we can work towards it.
mm, mm,
And
mhm,
ideally 3D would be nice, but for some things 2D would be better. So there could be two different versions, or
mm,
maybe we could
mm,
switch back and forth where it kind of squashes a
mhm.
3D into a 2D.
Yeah, yeah. The things that I'm sure if they have 3D, they probably already have an earlier version of 2D.
Right, but
Uh,
what we're
yeah.
thinking of is very complicated. Like I doubt this has different zoom levels on it, where you could zoom into Antlia cluster and zoom in and
Yeah.
see all the
Um,
different clusters in it. So let's
in
just say,
fact, I think they have less cluster. Is it? I don't know for sure, but because they have to kind of have sufficient information in order for them to construct these kind of 3D. So they might only be focusing on several that is familiar right now.
oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure that's what's happening. But for our project, this would be zoom level 1.
Mhm,
Maybe it could be in
mhm,
3D, maybe not. And we'll just say the great attractor is going to
mhm.
be our Milky Way. And then we'll go into zoom level 2, or zoom level, I guess this is the Milky Way, huh? This will be zoom level 2, and this is everything that we're used to. And then
Mm.
once we go into zoom level 3, it'll be the world. So we can only see like United States and California. And we can't see any of the roads or anything yet because we have to zoom in more. So if we zoom into California, we'll see San Diego. Maybe that'll be zoom level 4. Los Angeles, Las Vegas. Keep zooming in
Yeah.
to our
So this
mind
is
map.
supposed to be most well studied, right, as compared to the rest of the universe, because we have been definitely spending a lot of effort in trying to map this kind of map.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely.
and
And
even we already have Google Maps, so I doubt we can do better than Google Maps, by the way.
yeah,
So,
and maybe we can
uh,
put in a lot of the information from Google Maps, but
yeah.
for
But
something
again,
like here,
yeah, it's up to what is the purpose of this, and I don't think we have the kind of resource of developing this app into a very detailed one in just a few weeks or like even few days of, hours of time into this app. So, say if we are developing again an educational kind of tool out there, so I guess it's about how we are able to create something that is totally novel. Like, for example, our science Olympiad coach, he does not really like to use computer a lot. So he has everything in his head or maybe in his printout. So we will need to basically borrow his brain, but still making it more advanced in such a way. So he could introduce it to so all different types of students can understand
yeah,
and can feel rewarding.
and that's the good thing about using something that you can put on a
Hmm.
Django site because then everybody can access it. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, exactly. Definitely more impactful. The teacher can start to teach students in different countries. Like,
yeah,
they could, yeah,
and it's just something
not
that
having
you're
to
going
be in.
to put your
Hmm.
mind into. Like, oh, I know
Hmm.
everything about Zoom level 1. And so
Hmm.
I don't know if an Atlantia cluster actually exists, so I'm going to put a little red dot next to it. And
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure this exists, so it'll be a yellow dot. But I know for sure that the central cluster exists, so I'm going to put a green dot there, and I'll put maybe some source material, maybe write a little post about it. But
Hmm.
for something
Hmm.
like Google Maps, like
Yeah.
all of this would be green because we know for
Hmm.
sure that La Mesa exists. We know for sure that Spring Valley exists.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go in like really close, well, you definitely know the San Diego courthouse exists, and then we'll maybe
Mm-hmm.
have some images about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but let me ask you this, Drake. What is like maybe you can try to answer that question that Onion just posed. Like, what is the reason? What is the like underlying benefit to the user?
The benefit to the user is that um,
Yeah,
they can
we
know
were.
everything
Yeah.
about it.
Mhm.
And so Runquin was having the example of working
Yeah.
with brain
A
proteins.
coach. Yeah. I brought a couple of different examples. One example is working with brain structure, and of course, it has proteins, but also have those kind of anatomical structures, right? So
Right,
they have functions according to area, but sometimes it could have functions across different areas. But we just need to build that kind of understanding on top of an anatomical brain.
right. And so
They
Turtle
have.
Sonic just um, introduced the idea of cluster relations to me through GraphViz, and that got me thinking. We could have like a 2D image or a 3D image of the human body, and then at zoom level 1, we can only see like human person. And then this will be the arm, the leg, the eye, and then maybe California is the brain. Then we'd zoom into zoom level 2 of the brain. Then we can see the frontal lobe, the mitochondria, or let's say San Diego is some sort of a gray matter. And then we
Yeah.
zoom into zoom level, I don't forgot what we're at,
Actually,
zoom level
when
4.
you talk about brain atlas is something that we should actually, compare with because it's already being very comprehensive and there are a bunch of developers being supposedly working on that all the time. So yeah,
Brain map?
so yeah, brain map is yeah, I think it's the same thing. So as you can see, a lot of fundings be put inside, and again, they are putting this cell based that is actually related to the single cell sequencing project that I proposed in the beginning. So so they are keep collecting more information. There's even other mouse brain and other animals, but because their data are actually collected more abundant, so they could be used for uh, making this atlas more and more precise, and then people do comparative studies and then test out in human patients and somehow and then so makes this map all kind of starting to making progress. So
And with the
so
zoom
this just uh-huh.
with the zoom
Zoom.
cluster map, you could see like this is
Mm-hmm.
mouse brain, so this might be zoom level
Mm-hmm.
3 or something like that. And then the cell types
This
would
is
be
actually a kind of like a heat map of a pretty pretty not that much zoomed in level because you can pretty much see I can I can really identify its structure on top of my mind because I'm not a person that studied a lot of brain, but you can see this is like a section of the brain
right.
basically.
And so
Yeah.
if we look at
Mm-hmm.
our pseudo world or pseudo
Mm-hmm.
person thing, so this would be the
Mm-hmm.
body, and then we'd have like the arm, the eye, the mouth, and then
Mm-hmm.
California would be the head. Then we go
Mm-hmm.
in, and San Diego is going to be the brain. So this is like zoom level 3 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go to zoom level 3, we'd be able to see heat charts of the brain, anything having to do
Mm-hmm.
with the brain as a whole. And then if you want to
Yeah.
go to cells, you have to keep zooming into
Uh-huh.
brain
Yeah.
until you get to like zoom level 7
Mm.
or 8. And then
Basically, these type of different like biological maps, right? So they are all biological ways of presenting these data are are kind of oriented with the experimental method. Like the one that is having heat map, I think it's imaging data,
right,
and that is using some of these imaging microscopy. But the one on the top left, the cell type database figure that they used to show the idea is you can see these are the different ways of experimenting. They basically is more like old school way. They use certain type of staining that and then do histological. And then you can see a lot of bunch of brain cells there, but you can't really tell their functions or anything. You only see how they are kind of intertwined with each other and how you can possibly count, oh, this is one neuron, two neurons, three, four, five, and that's it. So this is early day understanding of how brain structured, that way. It's at a cell level.
Yes.
And then if you look at the one on the right, left, top right, it is another kind of experimenting. You can see some of these anatomical structure. And then there's also, I think it's a combination of different methodology. They use H&E staining, which is another kind of staining technique, basically. So you can sort of looking at the structures, and depending on what kind of antibody you use, you might be able to tell what protein is located in which region most abundantly.
Yeah.
So if you know enough about this protein function is for ion channel, calcium signaling, and you know, okay, so this region is responsible for that. So that's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this would be at zoom level, let's say like 13, because it's so small. And you could zoom in all the way in order to get here, and then maybe this post would be on zoom level 13, somewhere within the brain. So this would be like zoom level 13, zoom level 3, zoom level 7. You see, no matter what you're going to think about the human body, it could be within this one map with a bunch of different links going to all these different articles.
Yeah. And again,
I just posted, let me just interrupt for a second. I posted in the chat a really good video. It's from a long time ago, 1977. But it is Powers of 10. It's from a book of the same name. And it does zooming in all the way and a zooming out all the way. And it's really pretty fun. But I would like to suggest that, like, if you do have a project to map information that like if you worked within like the world of computer programming and technology and Python, and because there's a lot to just try to organize there, that would keep it within the scope of the kind of the subject matter of the working group, rather than getting too far afield, because you can get into the structure of the mind, but then you should have a different discussion group for that.
We're not really talking about the discussion of the mind. We're talking about how our Python mapping is going to work, and we're using the mind as a tool in order to understand how we're going to, how do you call it?
But you're not doing Python mapping, you're mapping something else. So if you're going to do mapping, map the world of Python, and like what are the different, here's the idea, which is you map, okay, well, what are the different graphics packages that work with Python? What are the different...
That might be interesting too, to do such a project.
Right, and not enough people know enough about Python within this group to be able to talk about the zoom.
That's just the point.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge, right? So
that's the point. That's the reason that you want to have it, because what you're trying to do is say, okay, well, what do we know about the particular, like this library maybe? Well, we haven't gone there yet. We haven't looked it over. That would be something that would be unknown, but we would know that it exists. And then, so you would be mapping the space of knowledge among not the mind or the universe or the map of the world or anything like that. It would be the map of what our understanding is of the world of programming with Python or whatever else. But the concept would be, like, I think when things get off subject is if you're not either talking about Python or you're talking about, or not talking about algorithms. Like algorithmic thinking is even if it's not directly Python, then it's something that that type of thinking you'd be using for Python, and any kind of programming skills. If you're doing mapping using a tool for mapping, then that's not really Python. That's above Python, and you've got a user interface in between. So I would argue that it's out of scope.
Well, we can have a
not
user
within the scope of the
interface in a
working
way.
group. It doesn't matter if it's a user interface and you're not talking about algorithmic thinking, and like if you're saying, well, we're going to use this mapping thing to map the information about the mind and what people know about the mind. Well, that is a different subject matter. And then you would want a working group talking about neural technology and the subject of the mind, because I think it's out of scope from the working group.
What I
And
think that you're not fully understanding is that we're using the human body for people who aren't very well versed in Python. After we get this thing built, we can try and understand how all of the different intricacies of the Python packages and the code examples fit together. But for
Yeah,
people who aren't very well versed in
yeah.
Python, especially to understand
well,
such
I think
a
it's still helpful.
complicated, yeah,
For me as a learner, right? So I consider myself learner, but we're all kind of learning still. So it might be very helpful actually. So if we could have a bigger picture, somehow it doesn't have to be perfect. It's still going to be improved over the time for sure, but then it give you a very visual kind
yes.
of information.
And
Yeah.
I am very visual,
I
and
would
that's
say
why I'm so
don't use the
interested in
human
this.
body at all. Start with the things that we know about Python and the libraries and things, because then the idea that people know more about the human body that are in the Python group than they know about Python doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean,
If you're here, you want to learn about Python and algorithmic thinking.
yes, but you know how your body works. You know that you have a head, you know
No,
that you
I
have
don't
two
know.
eyes.
I don't think people here
You don't
know
know that
about
you
how
have a
their
head and
body.
two eyes?
Well,
Um,
don't you know that there's
it,
libraries that
yeah.
are why work with that? Everybody knows so much about Python. You know what an if statement is.
Because this is
Yeah.
going to be for the masses, and
Okay, well,
I'm
my
creating
point
a
of
short
view,
video to put on YouTube.
I'm a member of the group, and I think that you're off course. I think you need to stay on focused on Python and algorithmic thinking, and not on the human body. If you want to talk about things, an if statement, a for loop, and stuff like that, now we know about those. So start there.
All I
Don't
wanted
do
to
with the
do
human
was
body. Don't
make
do the human
a
body.
short video with everybody who was in the discussion so that
Yeah.
if
Mm.
anybody else wanted to take up the reins on this, that they would
Yeah.
know who out the original thinkers were.
Yeah.
And
So
I just wanted to
maybe
run through
maybe
it really
Ray
fast, and then
Okay,
Ray,
well, count
do
me
you want
out.
to
I'm not interested in
uh
working on.
yeah.
I'm not interested in
It's
working.
totally
The reason I'm
okay.
here is to
Yeah.
talk about Python
Mm.
and algorithmic thinking, and I think that it's a misuse of the group for you to come in and start talking about mapping the human body. I just think it's wrong
I think it's
for you
a
to do that.
misuse of the group when you come in and talk about your subject for the entire time or an hour
I'm
to
talking
hour
about
straight.
Python. I'm talking about Python.
Yes, and
Okay.
everybody's already tuned out
We,
after an hour and a
yeah,
half.
we have 2 more minutes. So Ray, I wonder if you have anything interesting you want to show us because we really are looking forward to it. We could stay for longer actually.